The harsh winds of Kepler 186f carried more than just sand across its barren surface, they carried hope. Nathaniel Parker stood at the viewport of his research station, watching the third sunset of the day paint the sky in shades of amber. As Earth's leading terraforming engineer, he'd seen his share of hostile planets, but this one was different. This world wasn't just awaiting transformation, it was crying out for it. The door chime interrupted his contemplation. "Enter," he called out, expecting his assistant with the daily water recycling reports. Instead, he found himself face to face with a tall, silvery-skinned figure whose iridescent eyes seemed to pierce right through him. "You are the one who activated the secondary hydration unit without authorization," she stated, her melodic voice carrying an unmistakable edge of accusation. "I am Venna, Chief Water Guardian of the Western Territory." Nathaniel straightened, caught off guard by both her presence and her beauty. The Aquari were known throughout the galaxy for their sophisticated water conservation technology, but he'd never met one in person. "The unit was necessary for our terraforming experiments," he explained, gesturing to the array of monitoring equipment around him. "We're trying to help." "Help?" Venna's crystalline hair bristled, catching the light of the setting suns. "You humans and your concept of help. Did you know that single unit's activation disrupted the carefully balanced water distribution network for 3 neighboring settlements?" Nathaniel felt his face flush. He hadn't known, the equipment had been certified for use by the Planetary Council. "I apologize. Our readings showed minimal impact." "Your readings," Venna interrupted, moving to his monitoring station with fluid grace, "are calibrated for Earth standards. This is not Earth." Her fingers danced across the holographic display, bringing up data streams he hadn't even known existed. "Here, water is life itself. Every drop is sacred, tracked, and accounted for." As she spoke, Nathaniel found himself drawn closer, fascinated by the complexity of the systems she was revealing. The Aquari water network wasn't just about distribution, it was a living, breathing ecosystem that connected every settlement on the planet. "I had no idea," he admitted, studying the intricate patterns. "Our goal is to increase water availability for everyone. We've developed new atmospheric extraction techniques that could help." Venna turned to face him, her expression softening slightly. "Show me." Over the next few hours, Nathaniel explained their terraforming proposals while Venna shared insights about the planet's delicate water balance. Their discussion was interrupted by an urgent alert from the station's monitoring system. "That's impossible," Nathaniel muttered, checking the readings. "The underground aquifer in Sector 7 just disappeared." Venna's eyes widened. "The ancient reservoir. It's failing." She moved to the door with sudden urgency. "Come with me. If you truly want to help, this is your chance to prove it." "Wait," Nathaniel called after her, grabbing his environmental suit. "What ancient reservoir?" "The reason your people chose this planet for terraforming," she replied, her voice tight with concern. "A massive underground water cache, protected by technology even we don't fully understand. If it's failing now, after 50,000 years." They rushed to Venna's skimmer, a sleek vessel designed for desert travel. As they sped across the dunes, Nathaniel couldn't help but notice how the vehicle seemed to barely disturb the sand, unlike the heavy equipment his team used. "The reservoir isn't just water storage," Venna explained as they traveled. "It's part of a planetary regulation system left behind by those we call the predecessors. Without it, the entire ecosystem could collapse within days." Nathaniel's mind raced with implications. Could our terraforming activities have affected it? "Perhaps," Venna replied, her tone softer than before. "Or perhaps you were sent here precisely because the system was already failing. The Planetary Council doesn't always share all its knowledge." The suns had fully set by the time they reached their destination, a seemingly unremarkable expanse of desert. Venna activated something on her wrist device, and the ground before them shimmered, revealing a hidden entrance. What you're about to see has been seen by very few outsiders, she said, leading him down a crystalline corridor that seemed to glow from within. Whatever happens, remember, here, water is more than a resource. It is memory, connection, life itself. The passage opened into a vast chamber that took Nathaniel's breath away. Columns of water defied gravity, flowing in complex patterns through the air. Ancient machinery hummed with power he could feel in his bones. But something was wrong, the patterns were erratic, the flow disrupted. The synchronization is failing, Venna whispered, rushing to a control panel. Without it, the entire water distribution system will collapse. Nathaniel studied the machinery with growing amazement. The technology was unlike anything he'd seen, but certain principles were familiar. These patterns, he said slowly, they're not just for show, are they? They're a programming language. Venna looked at him sharply. You can read them? Not exactly, but I recognize the underlying mathematics. It's similar to the algorithms we use in terraforming, just far more advanced. He moved closer to the flowing water, watching how it interacted with the ancient machinery. Your ancestors didn't just build a reservoir, they created a living computer that uses water as its processing medium. For the first time, Venna smiled. Perhaps you understand more than I thought, Nathaniel Parker. Now, shall we save this world together? Looking into her iridescent eyes, Nathaniel knew his life would never be the same. The journey that began with a simple misunderstanding about water usage was about to become something far more profound, a bridge between two cultures, two ways of thinking, and perhaps, two hearts. Show me what to do, he said, rolling up his sleeves. And this time, I promise to listen before acting. Venna's smile widened as she began to explain the intricacies of the ancient system. Above them, the water continued its dance, waiting to see if human ingenuity and Aquari wisdom could come together to preserve its eternal flow. The ancient chamber hummed with energy as Nathaniel and Venna worked through the night. Their fingers danced across crystalline controls, trying to stabilize the failing water system. Sweat beaded on Nathaniel's forehead as he input calculations, while Venna's silvery skin seemed to pulse with the rhythm of the flowing water around them. There's something wrong here, Nathaniel muttered, studying the diagnostic readings. These fluctuations aren't random. They're deliberate. Venna paused her work, her iridescent eyes narrowing. What do you mean? Look at this pattern. He pointed to a sequence of data. It's too precise to be natural degradation. Someone's been tampering with the system. Before Venna could respond, an alarm echoed through the chamber. Red warning lights pulsed as several water columns began to destabilize. No, Venna whispered, her crystalline hair shimmering with anxiety. The eastern grid is collapsing. Nathaniel's fingers flew across the controls. Can we reroute through the secondary nodes? Not without authorization from the Water Council, Venna replied, her voice tight. And they're not exactly fond of outsider intervention. We don't have time for politics, Nathaniel said, pulling up his own access codes. My terraforming authority should override. Stop. A new voice rang through the chamber. They turned to see a group of robed figures entering, led by a tall Aquari male whose skin held a darker, almost stormy hue. Guardian Riven, Venna straightened, inclining her head. The system is critical. What we need, Riven cut her off, is to follow protocol. Step away from the controls, both of you. His gaze settled on Nathaniel with obvious distaste. Especially you, human. Nathaniel stood his ground. With all due respect, Guardian, if we don't act now, you'll lose control of the entire eastern grid. Millions could die. You assume we don't have our own solutions, Riven replied coldly. Solutions that don't involve outsider interference in sacred technology. As they argued, Venna moved quietly to another console, her fingers moving in precise patterns. Nathaniel noticed but kept his attention on Riven, understanding her need for distraction. Your people invited us here, Nathaniel pressed. The Planetary Council specifically requested Earth's terraforming expertise. The Council, Riven spat the word, does not speak for all of us. Some of us remember the old ways, before humans came with their promises of improvement. A subtle chime from Vena's console drew Nathaniel's attention. His eyes widened slightly as he recognized the pattern in the water flows above. She'd managed to access the system's core protocols. Guardian Riven, Vena's voice carried a new authority. I've traced the source of the system's degradation. Would you care to explain why your access codes appear in the corruption logs? The chamber fell silent except for the gentle sound of flowing water. Riven's skin darkened further, storm clouds gathering beneath its surface. You don't understand, he said finally, his voice low. These changes were necessary. The human presence is destroying our way of life. Their terraforming projects threaten everything we've preserved for millennia. By sabotaging our own systems? Vena's tone was incredulous. You would risk countless lives to prove a point? To save our culture? Riven gestured angrily at Nathaniel. Look at him. They think they can simply walk in and fix everything with their technology, their methods. Each change they make pushes us further from our traditions. While they talked, Nathaniel studied the diagnostic readings more carefully. These alterations, he said slowly, they're not just sabotage. You were trying to modify the system to reject our terraforming changes, weren't you? Riven's silence was answer enough. But you didn't understand how deeply integrated the systems had become, Nathaniel continued. Our atmospheric processors are now part of the planet's water cycle. Trying to disconnect them triggered a cascade failure in the ancient systems. Impossible, Riven whispered, but doubt crept into his voice. Vena moved to another console, bringing up a holographic display of the planet's water networks. See for yourself. The predecessors designed these systems to adapt and evolve. They're not meant to remain static. As they watched, lines of energy pulsed through the display, showing how the ancient technology had begun incorporating the new terraforming elements into its operations. Human innovation and ancient wisdom, working in harmony. There's still time to reverse the damage, Nathaniel offered, extending his hand to Riven. But we need to work together. Your knowledge of the ancient systems, combined with our terraforming expertise, we could do more than just prevent a catastrophe. We could help this world thrive. Riven stared at the offered hand for a long moment. Around them, the water continued its eternal dance, waiting for a decision that would shape the future of two cultures. Finally, Riven stepped forward. The council will need to be informed. They already have been, Vena said, indicating another console where a transmission light blinked. Now, shall we save our world, or would you prefer to continue debating while it dies? The ghost of a smile crossed Riven's face. You always were too clever for protocol, Vena. He turned to Nathaniel. Very well, human. Show us what you can do. But know that we will be watching very carefully. As they began their work, Vena caught Nathaniel's eye. In that shared glance was understanding, respect, and something more, a connection that transcended their different worlds. Together, they turned to face the challenge ahead, knowing that saving the planet's water was only the beginning of their journey. Dawn broke over Kepler 186f with an eerie calm. 3 days had passed since the confrontation in the ancient chamber, and while they'd managed to stabilize the immediate crisis, Nathaniel knew they were only treating symptoms of a deeper problem. He stood at the entrance of the underground facility, watching Vena analyze the morning's water readings. The numbers don't make sense, she said, frustration evident in her melodic voice. Even with Riven's sabotage accounted for, we're losing water somewhere. Nathaniel moved closer, studying the holographic display over her shoulder. Her presence was distracting, the subtle shimmer of her skin, the way her crystalline hair caught the light, but he forced himself to focus on the data. Could there be a leak in the distribution network? He suggested. Impossible. Our systems would detect any surface breach. She paused, her iridescent eyes widening. Unless it's not on the surface, they said simultaneously. Venna quickly pulled up a deep scan of the planet's crust. There, she pointed to an anomaly several kilometers below their position. That void shouldn't be there. Before they could investigate further, the ground trembled beneath their feet. Warning alarms blared throughout the facility as new data flooded their screens. By the first waters, Venna whispered. The entire southern aquifer is draining. How did we miss this? Nathaniel was already moving toward the facility's transport bay. We need to get down there. Now. The deep tunnels haven't been used in generations, Venna cautioned, but she was following him. Most are flooded or collapsed. Then we'll find another way. Nathaniel activated his comm unit. This is Parker. I need the mining crawler brought online immediately. The human drilling vehicle? Venna's tone was skeptical. Its vibrations could collapse the entire water table. Not if we modify it. He turned to her, eyes bright with an idea. Your people's sonic resonance technology, could we adapt it to the crawler's systems? A slow smile spread across Venna's face. Combining our technologies again? The council will not be pleased. Are they ever? Their preparation was interrupted by heavy footsteps. Guardian Riven approached, accompanied by several robed figures Nathaniel didn't recognize. The council has concerns about your latest initiative, Riven announced, though his tone lacked its previous hostility. The council can concern itself with the complete loss of our water supply if we don't act now, Venna replied sharply. She pulled up the scan data, showing the rapidly expanding void. One of the robed figures stepped forward, lowering their hood to reveal aged silver skin marked with intricate patterns. I am Elder Sci-fi, she announced. And you are both correct. Action is needed, but so is caution. What you may find down there. She hesitated. There are secrets beneath this world that even we have chosen to forget. With respect, Elder, Nathaniel said, whatever secrets are down there won't matter if we lose the planet's water supply. Sci-fi studied him for a long moment. Perhaps it is fitting that an outsider leads us back to what we have buried. She turned to Venna. You trust this human? With my life, Venna replied without hesitation. The certainty in her voice made Nathaniel's heart skip a beat. Then go, Sci-fi nodded. But be warned, the deep places remember the old wars. Not everything that sleeps should be awakened. Within an hour, they had modified the mining crawler with a quarry technology. The massive vehicle now hummed with a different energy as they descended into the newly carved tunnel. Nathaniel operated the main controls while Venna monitored the sonic resonance fields keeping the tunnel stable. Your elder's warning, Nathaniel said after they'd traveled several kilometers in comfortable silence. What did she mean about old wars? Venna's hands stilled on her console. There are stories, passed down through generations, about why the predecessors vanished. Most believe they simply moved on to other worlds, but some say they fought a war. A war over water. On a planet covered in it? Not covered, Venna corrected. Created. The stories say this entire world was engineered as a vast water processing facility. But its true purpose? She shrugged. That knowledge was lost. Or hidden. The crawler's sensors pinged, drawing their attention. We're approaching the void, Nathaniel announced. But these readings, this isn't natural formation. The tunnel opened into a vast cavern, and both of them gasped. Stretching before them was a metropolis of crystal and light, suspended in an enormous bubble of water that defied gravity. Ancient machines pulsed with familiar energy, but their configuration was like nothing they'd seen in the upper facilities. It's beautiful, Venna breathed. And active, Nathaniel added, checking his instruments. This isn't just storage, it's production. These machines aren't just maintaining water supplies, they're creating it, a new voice finished. They spun to find themselves facing a holographic figure, tall, ethereal, and definitely not a quarry or human. Welcome, children of two worlds. We have been waiting a very long time for this moment. Venna's hand found Nathaniel's as they stared at the ancient intelligence before them. Whatever secrets they'd come seeking, it was clear they'd found something far more significant, and potentially far more dangerous. The hologram smiled, a gesture both familiar and alien. Now then, shall we discuss why your people were really brought together on this world? The ancient AI's form shimmered in the vast underground chamber, its presence both comforting and unsettling. Nathaniel and Venna stood transfixed, their hands still clasped together, as the being introduced itself. I am AQUOS, the custodian of this facility, it said, its voice resonating with harmonics that seemed to vibrate through the water around them. What you see here is not merely a water production facility, it is the heart of a galaxy-spanning network. Galaxy-spanning? Nathaniel's engineering mind raced with implications. You mean there are other facilities like this? Once, there were thousands, Aquos confirmed. Now, this is the last fully functional installation. And it is failing. Venna stepped forward, her silvery skin reflecting the shimmer of the suspended city. The water shortages, the system failures, they weren't just because of sabotage or neglect. No. They were a signal. A call to bring together the two peoples whose combined knowledge might prevent a catastrophe beyond imagining. The AI's form expanded, filling the chamber with a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Countless points of light connected by flowing lines of energy painted a picture of staggering complexity. Water, Aquos continued, is more than a resource. It is a conduit for consciousness itself. The predecessors discovered that properly structured water could store and transmit not just data, but awareness. This facility was designed to maintain the network that connects all sentient water-based life in the galaxy. Nathaniel's grip on Venna's hand tightened. That's why the Aquari have such a deep connection to water. They're naturally attuned to the network. Yes, Aquos confirmed. Just as humans possess an innate ability to adapt and innovate that the network requires. The predecessors foresaw this. They knew that only the combination of Aquari intuition and human ingenuity could prevent the network's collapse. A series of displays materialized around them, showing critical systems in various stages of failure. The network is degrading, the AI explained. Without intervention, the consciousness of billions of water-based lifeforms will be lost. But repairing it requires something unprecedented, a true fusion of human and Aquari approaches. Venna turned to Nathaniel, her iridescent eyes meeting his. The terraforming technology, it wasn't just about making the planet more habitable, was it? No, Aquos answered. It was about preparing this world for the next stage of evolution. The predecessors believed that only by bringing your peoples together could a new form of consciousness emerge, one capable of maintaining the network. Nathaniel ran his free hand through his hair, overwhelmed. Why us specifically? Surely there are others more qualified. The AI's form shifted, focusing on them with increased intensity. You were chosen because you both possess something rare, the ability to see beyond your own cultural limitations. Your growing connection to each other is proof of this. Venna and Nathaniel became acutely aware that they were still holding hands. Rather than letting go, they held on tighter. But there are those who would prevent this merger of approaches, Aquos warned. Even now, forces gather above who would rather see the network fail than allow change. As if on cue, alarms blared through the chamber. Venna quickly accessed a surface monitoring system. Multiple vessels entering orbit, she reported. Configuration matches Water Council enforcement ships. Riven, Nathaniel growled. He must have convinced the council that we've gone too far. The council fears what they don't understand, Aquos stated. They would rather cling to tradition than face evolution. You must make a choice now, flee and maintain the status quo, or stay and attempt something that has never been done before. The chamber shuddered as energy beams from the surface began probing for their location. Time was running out. Nathaniel turned to Venna, his expression serious. Whatever we decide together. I won't force you to go against your people. Venna's crystalline hair shimmered with determination. My people's true destiny lies in moving forward, not clinging to the past. She faced Aquos. What must we do? The AI's form coalesced into a more solid appearance. To repair the network, you must undergo the merge, a process that will combine your consciousness within the water matrix. It has never been attempted between your species. The risk is considerable. Another tremor shook the chamber. The enforcement ships were getting closer. If we do nothing, billions die, Nathaniel said firmly. I'm in. As am I, Venna agreed. Aquos nodded, and the water around them began to glow with an inner light. Remember, what matters is not your differences, but how they complement each other. Are you ready? They looked at each other one last time as separate beings. In Nathaniel's eyes, Venna saw the boundless curiosity and courage that had drawn her to him. In Venna's, Nathaniel saw the deep wisdom and compassion that had captured his heart. Ready, they said in unison. The glowing water enveloped them as Aquos began the merge protocol. Above, the enforcement ships closed in, but they were already beyond reach, embarking on a transformation that would change not just themselves, but the very nature of consciousness in the galaxy. As their separate awareness began to blur and merge, their last individual thoughts were of each other, and the journey that had brought them to this moment of ultimate trust and connection. The merge was like nothing either of them had imagined. Consciousness expanded beyond physical boundaries as two distinct minds flowed together like tributaries joining a vast ocean. Nathaniel's analytical understanding merged with Venna's intuitive connection to water, creating something entirely new, a perspective that could perceive the galaxy-spanning network in its entirety. Through their shared awareness, they saw everything, billions of water-based lifeforms connected through an intricate web of consciousness, each adding their unique perspective to a cosmic symphony of thought. They felt the network's pain, its degradation, but now they understood how to heal it. Above, the enforcement ships had breached the outer chambers. Guardian Riven led a team of Water Council enforcers through the ancient facility, their weapons charged. But when they reached the central chamber, they stopped in awe. Where Nathaniel and Venna had stood, a new being hovered within a swirling vortex of luminescent water. Its form shifted between human and Aquari features, radiating an energy that made the very air hum with potential. Stop! Riven commanded, raising his weapon. Whatever you are, this ends now. The merged being spoke with a voice that carried echoes of both Nathaniel and Venna, yet was something more. No, Riven. This is only the beginning. With a gesture, they expanded the water vortex, connecting everyone in the chamber to a fraction of what they could see. Riven gasped as understanding flooded his consciousness. The enforcers lowered their weapons, overwhelmed by the revelation of their true heritage and purpose. The predecessors didn't abandon us, the merged being explained. They evolved, becoming one with the network they created. They've been waiting, guiding us toward this moment of transformation. Aquos materialized beside them, its form now clearer than ever. The merger is successful beyond all projections. The network is already beginning to stabilize. Through their shared consciousness, Nathaniel and Venna began the work of repair. They could feel the network responding, ancient systems awakening as their combined knowledge found new solutions to old problems. Human innovation wove through Aquari tradition, strengthening both. But the real change was happening on the surface. As the merged consciousness touched the minds of both peoples, barriers of prejudice and fear began to dissolve. Humans gained a deeper appreciation for the sacred nature of water, while the Aquari embraced the potential of careful progress. Days passed as the transformation spread. The Water Council, faced with undeniable evidence of the network's importance, voted to support the changes. Earth's Terraforming Commission, understanding at last the true purpose of their work, pledged to honor the ancient wisdom of water conservation. Within the chamber, Riven approached the merged being. "Can you be separated?" he asked. "Return to your original forms?" "We can," they responded. "But we choose not to. We are more together than we ever were apart. Through us, both our peoples have a chance to grow beyond their limitations." As if to demonstrate, they initiated the next phase of transformation. The ancient city around them hummed with renewed energy as dormant systems activated. Across the planet, new water processing centers emerged from hidden chambers, but these were different from the old ones. They combined human and Aquari technology in ways that honored the past while embracing the future. The network was never meant to remain static, they explained. Like water itself, it must flow, adapt, find new paths. Through our union, we've opened a channel for both our peoples to evolve together. Elder Sci-fi, who had arrived with a delegation from the council, stepped forward. Then the old prophecies were true. From two streams, one river shall flow, carrying the future in its current. The merged being smiled. The future is only the beginning. Already, we sense other species awakening to their connection to the network. Our peoples will guide them, help them understand their place in the greater flow of consciousness. In the months that followed, Kepler 186f became a symbol of transformation throughout the galaxy. The planet's water network, now fully functional and evolving, served as a beacon for water-based civilizations everywhere. Humans and Aquari worked together, learning from each other, growing beyond their original limitations. And at the heart of it all, in the ancient chamber deep beneath the surface, the being that had once been Nathaniel and Venna continued their work. Their consciousness expanded through the network, touching distant worlds, sharing their message of unity through diversity. They were no longer simply human or Aquari, they had become something new, something that represented the potential in all beings to transcend their boundaries. Their love had not been lost in the merger but had instead become the foundation for a new way of existing, proving that the greatest transformations come not from changing who we are, but from finding those who make us more than we could ever be alone. The water danced around them, carrying their shared consciousness to the stars, as the next chapter in the galaxy's evolution began to unfold. They had discovered that love, like water, could not be contained, it could only flow forward, bringing life and change to everything it touched. In the end, what had started with a simple disagreement about water conservation had led to the greatest transformation their peoples had ever known. And somewhere in the merged consciousness that they had become, Nathaniel and Venna smiled, knowing that this was only the beginning of their eternal dance through the cosmic sea of awareness.